Hi and welcome to section 2, in which we're going to look at design for new solutions. So in our first video, we are going to look at reliability to your architecture. Now let's take a simple use case scenario. So let's say you're hosting a web application on a single EC2 instance. Now you have users who are hitting your web application. Now this is fine when you have a subset of users who are hitting your web application. But what happens when the number of users start to increase? You then have problems of performance degradation on your EC2 instance. Your users might start getting a slow response, and this is because in this architecture, your EC2 instance is the primary bottleneck. So the drawbacks of having a single EC2 instance in an architecture, it may not be able to sustain high loads. What you can do is that has an intermediate solution, and I've seen this being used across the board, is to increase the capacity of your EC2 instance itself. So remember, you can upgrade the capacity of an EC2 instance. You can choose an instance type that has more CPU, more RAM allocated to the underlying EC2 instance. But then really there is an extent to how much you can increase. So even though you increase the instance type, at some point in time, again that single EC2 instance will start becoming a bottleneck. So your architecture needs to scale. So in a scalable architecture, again, you have your users who are hitting your web application, but when the number of users start to increase, then you have another EC2 instance that's part of your entire architecture. So here you will have your web application split across two EC2 instances. So now we come to the concept of autoscaling. So autoscaling is a service that's available in AWS, and this is a feature that allows you to scale your architecture. In autoscaling, you define something known as a launch configuration. This defines the type of instance that should be launched as part of the autoscaling group. You then define scaling policies. So these scaling policies basically define how you would scale the backend instances as part of your autoscaling group. Now you can define it based on a schedule, or you could have a dynamic scaling policy. Now when it comes to a schedule, an example of where you would use a schedule for your autoscaling group is, let's say you have an application that's being used heavily during the morning periods or during the morning times. You can actually scale your application based on a schedule in the morning itself. So I said you could schedule the scaling to start early in the morning for your entire application. And then you have the dynamic scaling policy. So this is when you want to scale based on certain metrics. So an example is, let's say the CPU utilization for your architecture goes beyond a threshold. That is when you want to scale your architecture. Now you can do both a scale out and a scale in. Both are very important.